It's another happy day. We're glad we're with you to talk football here on Fumblegate. And welcome to a new live episode here on YouTube, December 19th, 2019, the penultimate episode of 2019. That's always a fun word to say.
Yeah.
I'm Jason Grefer. This is former Cincinnati Bengal Adam Kieft. Our Twitter handles are at the bottom of the screen for both us personally and the show, so make sure you follow us on there and throw us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/Fumblegate. Drop a comment or a meme or something on our Facebook page. It's cool. Obviously, as we bring you every week a loaded show, we will start the bowl picks this week. And since bowl games start Friday afternoon at 2 p.m., if you want to get involved in the bowl pick thing, we said last week, if you get involved out there and you win the thing, we'll come up with some kind of prize that we'll send your way. Email your picks to us by Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time at fumblegatepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's 1 hour before the bowl games start. So you do have a little bit of time to get your picks in. If you just want to do the picks for this week's bowl games, there are 10 bowl games to pick between now and next Thursday. And we'll kind of lay that out as we go along here today. So again, if you want to get involved in our Fumblegate Bowl Pick'em, fumblegatepodcast@gmail.com. Email us your bowl picks. If you want to send us picks for every single bowl game there is, that's great. We can go ahead and document it. And as a tiebreaker, give us a total point number for the national championship game. All right, so let's get into it, and we will talk in with the bowl picks. That's going to come in the back half of the show. We're going to start in the NFL this episode today, and it will start with one of the more bizarre situations that just continues to be a thing in the NFL, unfortunately. Josh Gordon is gone again, this time from Seattle. He has been suspended for substance abuse policy violation and also performance-enhancing drugs. And now, once again, suspended indefinitely. And just another turn in the world of Josh Gordon. And it just seems like, one step forward, two steps back with him. And let's give you a rundown here with the timeline of Josh Gordon. This is since he's been in the NFL. He had some issues going back to college when he was at Baylor. Eventually, Baylor told him kind of hit the bricks because he was getting in trouble there. Was going to transfer to Utah, never played it down there, went to the Browns in the supplemental draft. So here we go. Here is the first part of Josh Gordon's career timeline. You can see kind of some of the things. It started, at this point, 6.5 years ago for violation of the substance abuse policy. It carried into the 2014 season. And then into 2015, it just goes on and on here, and you see is a number of chances that Cleveland gave him, and it just eventually got to the point where the Browns had to cut ties and move on. I think the last straw was in a training camp last season when he showed up, I think, for maybe the first day or two, and then disappeared and took off for 3 weeks, saying he needed some personal time. Cleveland, again, did everything they could to be as accommodating to him as possible, but eventually, you got to say enough's enough with him. And so was traded to the Patriots and did okay for a while for the Patriots last year, and then in December left saying he was leaving the team to focus on his mental health. Well, later that day, same day, it was announced he had failed another test for substance abuse. Came back with the Patriots this year, had some productivity for him, and then hurt his knee, and the Patriots finally decided to move on. They never actually said why they've moved on, but eventually he was claimed by Seattle. And you see there the note that was interesting there. Seattle was 28th in the waiver order, so there were 27 teams above Seattle that could have claimed him at pass. And apparently Russell Wilson was the one that went to management and said, let's get this guy. Let's put in a claim and try and get him. So they did. He was there. Didn't really make a whole lot of noise. Of course, he was also hurt. Arriving there, finally got healthy, played in a couple of games, and then earlier this week it was announced suspended for PEDs and substance abuse. It's another turn in the sad saga of Josh Gordon. And Adam, I don't know that he ever finds his way back to the NFL again. I mean, there's just there's only so many chances you can give a guy before you finally say, football's just not it for him anymore. He has to go and take care of himself on a much more long-term basis. And this seems like, with as frequent as the issues are for him, that this could possibly take years for Josh Gordon to get his life turned around.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the inner demons that we'll never know about have consumed Josh Gordon and made it to a situation where there's just stuff that's more important in life to him, in his mind, with substance that he can't seem to get out of his own way, and it's unfortunate because we know how talented he is. Clearly, I mean, the NFL has given him multiple opportunities. Like, he's so talented, the NFL continues to give him opportunities to play, which doesn't happen if he's not a guy that teams are going to want. And so obviously, it's sad because you hate to say wasted talent, but it is, because that's just more important to him than his career as an NFL player. And maybe that's the way it is, and maybe that's fine for him, and maybe he's okay with that. But it's hard to say because none of us are in his mind. None of us know the demons that he deals with in his mind. But it's just sad to see a young person just kind of waste such a great opportunity, knowing the number of people out there who would love to have the same opportunity. And call it what you will, but he's essentially blowing his opportunity because he would rather do substances, and it's unfortunate. And again, I think you're correct. I don't think there's any path for him back to the NFL at this point. Like, at this point, I think the best opportunity for him is just to get his life straight and just have a normal life, whatever that may be. Because I think the NFL opportunity at this point has come and gone. Like, you can't be suspended this many times for substance abuse and continue to get chance after chance after chance. Now, obviously, the process says that he does get an appeal and he gets to sit down with the commissioner and he gets another opportunity to prove that he's clean and whatever. But anytime you hear the word indefinite suspension, how soon is Commissioner Goodell even going to bother to sit down with him? Like, it could be well over a year before he even bothers. And at that point, what has he done in the past year to even be prepared to come back in the NFL? But again, it's just it's a tragic situation because us as humans want the best for everyone. And this is not the best thing for Josh Gordon probably, but he's chosen this path, and unfortunately, it's going to probably cost him his opportunity to continue to play football. But I hope the best for him. I hope that his life works out. I hope this isn't one of those tragic stories you hear about in the future where he's dead within the next 5 years because he can't stay away from the problems. But I don't know. It's sad to hear about, but it's just one of those situations where none of us know what's going on in his mind, and hopefully he can get the right help he needs to get back into the right frame of mind and be a productive member of society.
When I first heard about this, my overall feeling was it was just sad, and I've kind of gotten beyond the point now of he's just continued to squander opportunity. Does he not appreciate what he has? I've kind of moved past that, and I've this coming up again. After he's been given a chance by both New England and Seattle, as two of the most upstanding, seeming on the surface, upstanding organizations in this realm that there are in football. Obviously we talked last week about the Patriots and Spygate 2 and so on and so forth. But in this area, these two clubs are willing to give guys a chance and try to put them in productive situations and productive environments where they can help the football club and also help themselves. I can't help but think at this point this is not a disease for him, and that he's. You wonder at this point if he is beyond the point where he's consciously making this decision to, consume substances or, in this case also take performance enhancers, if that's indeed what happened, as is what the NFL has said. you just wonder at some point, at this point, if his mind is beyond the point where it can make the choice, and it knows the difference between right and wrong, and that's where I just and I think that might be the point of contention when he goes in front of Commissioner Goodell to make his appeal that this was a freak thing. I've been on the straight and narrow, for however long he's been on the straight and narrow for. Obviously not very long, a little over a year since he was traded from or since last year when he was announced that he's suspended for substance abuse. So, I mean, that was announced on December 20th, and so here we are 364 days later. So it may have made it a year of being fully clean, and you just wonder at this point if Commissioner Goodell isn't necessarily from the standpoint of, no, you've squandered so many opportunities. And I almost hope that this is the case, and everybody knows this is watched Fumblegate. I'm not the biggest fan of Roger Goodell. That Roger Goodell doesn't say, Josh, we understand your talent. I understand your talent. There's no denying it. But at this point, I'm trying to save your life. You need to, you have got to go get help. And it's clear at this point that football is being more of a detriment to his overall health than anything else, because football teams
can't deal with both, apparently.
And football teams, you physically cannot monitor a guy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, you've been in the locker rooms before. I'm sure you've seen some guys who have not always been on the straight and narrow.
No.
You don't have to say who or what, but every guy in there is treated like a professional. You're treated like a man, so you're going to have your own personal time. And your intention, the organization's intention is you keep yourself on the straight and narrow. And apparently that's just not the case for Josh Gordon. You just hope, if anything down the road, he can get himself straightened out. And, we've seen other professional athletes do when they fall in hard times, they get themselves straightened out and they become like a mentor to younger kids and say, here's my story and here's what you need to do to not go down that path.
Again, it'll be nice that hopefully that he gets everything straightened out.
Yeah.
Gives himself an opportunity in normal life. And it would be great, like you mentioned, to use this platform, assuming that he gets everything straightened out, to use this platform to help other people, because he's not the only person in the world that struggles with addiction, and he's certainly not even the most talented athlete that struggles with addiction, because we've seen it time and time again in different sports at different levels. Sometimes addiction just takes hold of you, and it would be nice to see, like you mentioned, other people have done it before, to get a hold of his addiction and use that as a platform to help other people who are struggling with the same thing. So, I hope the best for the young man. Like, he, supremely talented, but he's got to work on himself first, and hopefully he gets the help he needs and takes care of that. And again, I hope it's a situation where he does use this platform going forward to help other people, because again, many people in many different walks of life struggle with addictions, and I just hope it doesn't end as tragically as it can. I hope it ends up as a positive light.
And the other thing is, you never hear anything of him about being necessarily a major problem guy.
No, he's never a problem in the locker room. He's not a problem off the field as far as incidents off the field. It's just personal thing to him, personal addiction, and the choices that he makes is, unfortunately costing him opportunities. And again, I hope it works out for him as a person in the end, and that he can help other people as well.
And to the point you touched on earlier, hopefully 5 years from now, if he's not playing football, that he is doing something in a positive light to help those who've been down that similar path.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to things relating back to the football field. And one of the things we've liked to have fun with over this season is the fun little thing we do, Game Picks, called Will They Cover, and it's been featuring the Cincinnati Bengals quite heavily. And one of the reasons why the Bengals have been so bad, among a myriad of reasons, is that A.J. Green has not played at all this season after injuring his foot on the first day of training camp. Foot, ankle, call it whatever you want.
Lower body extremity.
He's a free agent at the end of the year. He has said now he's probably not going to play the last two games of the year against Miami and Cleveland. Why would he? Anyway. But he has also said, he wants to stay here in Cincinnati. He wants to set that example. He wants to break all the Bengals receiving records. But he has also said now that if the Bengals use the franchise tag on him in the offseason, which is their right to do, he will not show up for OTAs and he will not show up for training camp if that happens. What do they do with A.J. Green, Adam?
Well, here's the problem, and this, again, Mike Brown being Mike Brown has created this situation. I think they're going to have to let him go because even in the case they do franchise him, which is their only opportunity to keep him, it sounds like at this point, because negotiations on a long-term deal aren't going very well. And Mike Brown doesn't negotiate in season, so there's probably no movement right now. And obviously, there wasn't a deal signed before the season starts. I think the problem becomes is he's probably going to end up walking to go to a contender. I don't think there's any indication that the Bengals offense is designed to help him be successful at this point because no one on their offense is being successful. And I think there's too many question marks here in Cincinnati. The tone of it, to me, of AJ Green's responses to the questions he's been getting recently, is almost as if he wants to leave. He just doesn't want to burn the bridge in case he can't, which is why he's kind of giving, very calculated answers, getting his point across, but not completely pissing off the Bengals franchise to the point where they don't want to re-sign him. There's total validity in not signing the franchise tender and not showing up until training camp for him. I think part of it is that the relationship has become fractured. I think he could have played this season. I think he's chosen not to. Just at this point, an ankle/foot injury, and I know he's dealt with a myriad of lower body injuries throughout his career. No injury that didn't land him on IR should have lasted 17 weeks. So I think part of it is AJ Green playing a little bit of a cat and mouse game and not coming back. And that's his right to do. He's protecting his body, and that's his biggest asset, obviously. But I don't know. I feel like if I'm the owner of a franchise, it's pretty evident that AJ Green is not fully committed to my team. And the only way I'm going to re-sign him is to have to put him on a franchise tender, give him a short-term deal for probably too much money, given his injury history, or he gets to go into free agency and see what he's worth. We know Mike Brown doesn't make the soundest business decisions. Again, back to part of the problem. AJ Green was a tradable commodity at the trade deadline. I would imagine, based on this, lingering ankle injury, that he would have been able to play for someone else, particularly a contender, at this point in time. And there were certainly many buyers for elite wide receivers at the time. You look at the situation even like Philadelphia, who can't find a number one receiver right now.
Perfect example.
If you would have had him at the trade deadline, offered him to Philadelphia, who's in contention to win the NFC East, and we're going to talk about it here in a second, you missed that opportunity by not getting something for him in return, and you may end up having to let him walk in free agency. And it wouldn't be the first time that Mike Brown screwed up something like this, because it's happened a myriad of times. Us in Cincinnati know that. But I don't know. It's my gut tells me he may still end up in Cincinnati because of the injury history, and maybe Cincinnati does offer him the most money, but he's not going to get what he's truly worth because of his injury history. And certainly doesn't sound like he wants to play under the franchise tender. So it won't surprise me if he's still a Bengal and he ends up playing under the franchise tender for a year, but it also won't surprise me if Mike Brown just lets him walk in free agency and he gets nothing out of it. It'll be interesting to see how the early part of the offseason plays, because free agency doesn't open until, I believe, March 1st or around there is typically when the league season ends. It'll be interesting to see once the end of the season truly happens. Coaching changes. There's still the grumble that Zach Taylor might not return as the head coach next year. How much validity to put in that, who knows? But coaches, it's that last couple of games, coaches are starting to get their votes of confidence or not. Zach Taylor really isn't getting his vote of confidence, but Mike Brown also doesn't speak publicly very often. So, as the season winds down, it's going to be interesting to see how the Bengals franchise ends these last two games, and then consequently what immediate actions happen afterwards. If Zach Taylor's no longer the coach, that has to happen immediately. If they're going to choose to move on from Andy Dalton, that needs to be said sooner than later. If they're truly the number one pick and Joe Burrow's the guy, they need to start selling Joe Burrow as the guy from the day that national championship game ends, assuming they beat Oklahoma. They need to set everything up to make Joe Burrow the most successful quarterback, get A.J. Green on board with Joe Burrow being the quarterback, and moving forward to give the franchise the best opportunity to be successful next year. Now, it's probably a rebuilding process. I don't think it's a next year turnaround anyway, but everything needs to be done to put the best core and nucleus together, and A.J. Green is included in that. Then everything from the time of the end of the season needs to be catering to get A.J. Green back in a Bengals uniform.
That's very well said. From my perspective, I would say at this point, Cincinnati's best option, since apparently, like you said, Mike Brown has not really been willing to engage in long-term discussions, and usually through Katie, of course, because Mikey just signs the checks anymore.
Yeah, but he pulls the trigger. He says, yes, go negotiate. Katie does the negotiating.
He still sort of has a clue what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm at this point now where I would say maybe it's in the best interest for the Bengals to tag him with the intent to trade him, because so that you do get something for him.
Give him the tender and then just say, hey, we're not signing him, but we want that first round pick or wherever. There's tiers to tagging franchise players.
Yeah, we'll pay him, and if nobody takes him for the trade, then he'll play into the franchise tag. Since he, at least at this point, has said he will show up for the regular season, maybe towards the end of training camp.
Show up at the end of August, not the beginning.
A couple of points, and just to follow up on what you touched on a moment ago, if indeed the Bengals do select Joe Burrow with the number one pick and move on from Andy Dalton, you can't
wrong decision, by the way.
You can't hang this albatross over a rookie's head of maybe I only have A.J. Green for 1 year.
Yeah.
And after that, what do I have?
Well, we know that you have to surround. Cincinnati has to surround franchise quarterbacks with successful players.
Correct.
And if you look at the seasons that they were their best, 05, the playoff years with Dalton, had weapons around him, but still missing a few. Right now, they're missing so many that a number one quarterback is not walking into a good situation. It's not like, oh, well, we got some good skill players or we got a decent run game. We got a decent offensive line. They don't have any of that. Like right now, if Joe Burrow's the pick, and we'll talk about the NFL draft show in the future. I don't think it should be, but and the Bengals, by the way, still have an opportunity to screw it up. They still got two winnable football games left. They still got a chance to fall all the way to 4 instead of 1, which may benefit them depending on how it works. It's. The Bengals haven't built a competent offense right now. They don't seem to have a competent head coach when it comes to offense, despite all the indications saying he was going to be, that you mentioned during the game, 4th and inches, and you're in the shotgun. Probably not the best formation on a 4th and inches, but I guess when you don't trust your offensive line to get a foot, maybe that's what you got to do. But anyway, If Joe Burrow's the guy and A.J. Green's a piece of that puzzle, you need to put those two pieces together immediately and keep that core, even though it's only two guys, keep those two together and move forward and try and build off of those two. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
And you need to do it for the long term, not just 1 year. Because
you got to give A.J. Green a deal that's going to keep him around.
If you do it with Green for 1 year, assuming the Bengals get the number one pick and assuming they take Joe Burrow, you do it for 1 year, and then Green says, because you can't tag him a second year in a row. He says, "Peace out, I'm gone." Then you're starting over again with a second-year quarterback. The other thing that's interesting to me is seeing now A.J. Green start to talk out of both sides of his mouth, and I don't think it works. I don't think you can sit there and do this if you're Green. Now, to the point I said before, he's always talked about, Larry Fitzgerald's my idol. I want to follow his example, play my entire career with one team. I want to set all the franchise records. I want to lead by example.
Yeah.
And now he has set the precedent that the future example he's going to set is if you tag me, I'm going to sit out. Now, I understand his frustration. I get it. But you can't sit here and do this and tell us one thing and then openly say, if you tag me, I will not show up.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. And so for that reason, if I'm Cincinnati, I would look to tag him, trade him, get another draft pick. If you trade him to a contender, you maybe get a late first rounder, otherwise a second round pick, maybe the best you can do because he's proven over the last 3 years he can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I mean, he is working against himself. The injury bug is working against him.
And the fact that he's going to be 32 years old.
It's not too dissimilar from the Tyler Eifert situation where the best money is probably going to come from Cincinnati, but it's still not going to be what he thinks he's worth.
And you see Tyler Eifert now, they basically have him on a pitch count.
Yeah.
He's only out there for certain plays. One other thing I would love to see Cincinnati do in the offseason to that point, we were talking about some of the play calling. I would have if Zach Taylor returns and I'm Mike Brown, I'm telling him you're giving up play calling.
Yeah. I think at this point you have to get a better play caller. It's just
you turn it over to your offensive coordinator. You focus on everything else because Taylor
run the franchise.
Taylor has shown some of his play calling leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
That being the fourth and inches going handoff from the gun instead of just having Dalton sneak it.
Sometimes it feels like Bob Bratkowski's back.
A little bit.
Shout out, Bob.
We don't have as many play actions and 9 routes.
Yeah.
Because they refuse to throw the ball long.
They keep using it. They can't stretch the field that much without AJ Green.
But the fact is you don't even try.
Yeah.
You don't take any shots down the field. And John Ross has apparently decided he wants to play again. He set the record for the 40-yard dash. You telling me you can't put him in the slot against a nickel cornerback and have him run down the seam?
You would think so.
You don't even see him take a shot at it.
Yeah.
And so they keep using AJ Green as an excuse, and he knows it. So that's why he's trying to negotiate the way he is. All right, let's move on to the game picks, and we'll stay right there. Cincinnati, they're on the road at Miami, and if the Bengals lose, they've got the number 1 pick.
They've solidified it.
Clinched the number 1 pick. They have a 2-game lead over Miami and Washington and the Giants, all with 2 games to go. So if the Bengals lose, they clinch the number 1 pick, and more than likely, Joe Burrow, welcome to Cincinnati. He was on the CBS Sunday show with Boomer Esiason, and Boomer handed him said, Bengal helmet
hand
welcome
off.
to Cincinnati, and Burrow had the look on his face like, yeah, I'm good.
Please don't.
Yeah, I'll pass. Cincinnati here on the road at Miami. If anything, this should be high comedy because both these teams are just so beyond lousy.
Yeah, they're less than ideal.
Cincinnati's winning this game. I'm just going to say it right now because Cincinnati they're starting to figure things out a little bit offensively. The last month or so, they've been somehow they've been one of the best rushing teams in the league.
Yeah.
Maybe it involves again what we talked about Zach Taylor's play calling, something he didn't do the first 9-10 weeks. Give Joe Mixon the football.
Yeah.
But in the last few weeks, Mixon's really started to pick it up, and they've gotten actually fairly decent at running the football. This past week, Dalton's nice little 4-interception performance against New England doesn't put a lot of confidence in him.
No.
And then Tyler Boyd whining and complaining after the game again at the play calling. That's not the first time Boyd's complained about it. But I think Cincinnati wins this one. I think their defense is playing a little bit better. The score was what it was against New England, but that's not all on the defense. Dalton was an absolute no-show.
Yeah, Dalton said he didn't. He's like giving the ball to the other.
The other thing
trying to get Tom Brady closer to the record.
And you saw in the first half, the Bengals were picking up chunk yards, running the football against New England.
I mean, this is a tie football game at halftime.
And in the second half, Zach Taylor decides, no, we're going to chuck the ball everywhere.
Yeah, let's just give it up.
Let's just start throwing it. And so anyway, I think Cincinnati wins. If for no other reason, anything else, a point that you brought up is that folks out there may not know. Do you know who Miami's leading rusher is in the season, or maybe not necessarily at this second, but is going to be by the end of the year? It's Fitzmagic.
Yeah.
Their leading rusher going into the last week or two was Mark Walton, who's been long gone because he can't allegedly stop abusing people.
Yeah.
He's long gone and cut. But Fitzmagic's going to be their leading rusher on the season. And, when you can't run the football at all, it allows guys like Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins to just pin their ears back and go after you. And Dunlap and Atkins have been playing really well the last month as well. And so, yeah, I think Cincinnati wins. If not just anything, keep putting stress on Bengals fans because For so
Again,
long,
they can fall from 1 to 4 in the last 3 weeks of the season.
For so long,
2 weeks of the season.
you've been thinking we've got the number 1 pick. We're going to get the number 1 pick. Leave it to them to just continue to just leave doubt.
Yeah.
Leave doubt in the minds of Bengals fans. It's as I said a few weeks ago, it would be peak 90s Bengals for this team to go ahead and win their last couple and fall out of the number 1 pick. And they've got 2 very winnable games with this one, and then Cleveland next week.
Home game.
And Cleveland has nothing to play for now.
Yeah, it's don't be surprised if
Miami's only giving 1.
They're only giving 1, which means in reality they're not the favorite because again, home teams in push 'em games get 3 points.
Correct.
Or pick 'em games, they're getting 1. You know what? I agree, and the reason I agree, Joe Mixon's going to get to 1,000 yards. He's 75 yards away. The offense seems to be figuring some stuff out. Andy Dalton has actually been commendable in his return after
we'll skip last week.
We'll skip but he's been commendable in the return from Ryan Finley. The Dolphins with Fitzmagic leading their rushing attack with 250 total yards rushing. He also leads them in rushing touchdowns, by the way. He has 3, which leads the team. It's you know what? The Bengals are going to find a way to bungle up being the Bungles and giving themselves an opportunity to not have the number 1 pick here. Assuming they beat Miami, which I am picking, I'm predicting that they beat Miami. Miami then in turn holds the tiebreaker because of the head-to-head matchup they will have lost.
Yeah.
And then if they beat the Browns in week 17, they would end up being at best the number 2 pick. But again, depending on I'm not sure the tiebreakers with the the Giants and the Redskins not having a regular season matchup against either of them. I don't know how those tiebreakers work, if it becomes a coin flip or what have you.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals win this game if Miami just goes total tank for week 17.
I think you have to.
Plays nobody.
I think you have to because
trying to
get the number 1 pick because as we know, they're both in the market for a quarterback. Like Ryan Fitzmagic.
They're both going to draft quarterbacks.
They're both drafting quarterbacks, and whoever you decide is your number 1 guy, if Joe Burrow is the number 1 guy in the draft for both of your draft boards, then you have to put yourself in position. Now, the Dolphins close with the Patriots, so they don't really have to go into full tank mode.
Well, the Dolphins lost to the Giants, so if the Giants were to lose their last 2,
they hold the tiebreaker.
Correct.
By virtue of losing to them.
Correct.
They hold the tiebreaker in that one. So they also lost to the Redskins. So
there you go. So
Miami is in the driver's seat when it comes to number 1 pick. If they lose this game, they're in the driver's seat because I think there's no chance of them winning in Week 17 at the Patriots. So will be very interesting to see if the Bengals win this one, if they come out to play in Week 17 against the Browns, or if they in turn switch to full tank mode, knowing that if they lose, the Dolphins are vaulted into the number 1 draft pick.
That Week 17 game, Cleveland at Cincinnati, there's going to be plenty of good seats available because neither one of those teams have a thing to play for.
Yeah, no playoff implications.
You're basically going to watch. You're probably going to end up watching if Cincinnati loses this game against Miami. You're basically going to watch a Week 4 preseason game, Week 17.
Yeah, you'll see starters and then finish it up with everybody who's on the P squad will get brought up to active roster and they'll slap a couple guys on IR just to save their legs for a week and
clear a roster spot.
Some practice squad guys get a full week game check real quick and. Yeah, it won't be that exciting to watch, and luckily, thanks to the NFL's new deal with the blackouts, we will still get that game on live television.
Which Mike Brown's still pissed about.
Over under at 20,000 fans, probably take the under. I don't think
they'll announce at least 35,000 because so many season ticket holders they have.
But I don't think anybody's beating down the door 2 days before New Year's Day.
I didn't know there were this many Patriots fans around the area because there were 57,000 fans at the Bengals-Patriots game.
Well, there's a lot of when you're good, you build yourself a fan base. Well, I'll allow the Steelers of recent history as well.
I will say too, my wife was away on business this weekend. I had to pick her up Sunday morning at the airport, and there were a lot of Patriots fans flying in
for them.
day from wherever they were flying in from. So
Well,
good for them.
what one could surmise that maybe Tom Brady's last season.
I thought about picking up tickets for this game, going to see, because it's probably going to be the last time Tom Brady ever plays in Cincinnati.
Yeah, certainly the last time he probably plays here, because it's not going to happen in the playoffs, and they won't face them next season.
The last time they played in Cincinnati was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't happen.
Probably the last time Tom Brady comes to Cincinnati as a football player.
Correct. Maybe ever in general.
Yeah. not a lot of reason, unless he really likes steaks. Not a lot of reason for he and his supermodel wife to be hanging out in Cincinnati.
And I don't think Tom Brady and Giselle are going to be coming to Cincinnati.
Hey, let's take a weekend to Cincinnati, Ohio.
Let's go eat some chili and.
To be fair, I love the tri-state area, and this is a perfect place for me and my family. But it's not exactly the hub for famous hot people. It's just not. I mean, it's not the hub for famous hot people. It's just not.
Nick Lachey's gonna have a word with you.
Bring it, Nick Lachey. I've seen your new wife. I don't find her that attractive, so it's okay. Your previous wife, maybe that's why she left, because she didn't want to live in Cincinnati. She was hot. Your new wife, not as much. Whatever.
Dating tips from Adam Kieft.
Anywho,
Let's
number one pick implications. How about playoff implications?
Yeah.
Here we are, the NFC East, the model of efficiency here.
The division nobody wants to win.
The division that just seems to be wanting to give it away. We got two teams, 7-7 Dallas at 7-7 Philly.
Yeah.
Who you got? The winner moves into the driver's seat in the NFC East at 8-7. Who you got, Jason?
I have the NFL. I have more people begging the NFL to do reseeding and get rid of the divisions.
Yeah,
because of this
which has been mentioned this season. I forget who was the head coach that just mentioned it the last week. Anyway,
get rid of divisions.
It's been up for discussion
again,
I
know this is not a common thing, but you're going to probably have either an 11 or 12 win Seattle or San Francisco team go to Dallas for the playoffs for the wild card round.
Either to Dallas or to Philly.
Either one.
They're gonna a team with at a minimum 3 more wins, possibly 4 more wins, is going to be on the road for a playoff game. And by all accounts, Seattle and San Francisco are Super Bowl contenders.
Yes.
And one of them is going to have to go on the road.
Yes.
For week 1. And in theory, probably the entire playoffs will have to be on the road.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate, but credit to the top end of the NFC, because the top end of the NFC is really good. The bottom end here in the NFC East, not so good.
This is the only team, the winner of this division is the only team getting into the NFC playoffs with single-digit wins.
Yes.
That's how good the NFC's been. I'm going with Dallas here on the road. A really nice win a week ago against the Rams, putting 44 on the board, but I think more importantly, running for 263 yards. So not all of it was on Dak Prescott. And the other point that you brought up a few moments ago, Carson Wentz has nobody to throw to other than Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Absolutely nobody to throw to.
Unfortunately, and it looked like, and there was mentions of, if Antonio Brown could get his shit figured out. By the way, Antonio, just stay off. You and the president should stay off the friggin' tweeter, because you're not doing yourselves any favors.
Hey, he's the greatest 6th-rounder of all time. Just ask him.
Stupid. Hey, Antonio, I like you, buddy. We've met numerous occasions. I like you. You seem like a smart guy at the time, but
shut up.
Shut up. Like, you're not doing yourselves any favor. And
who would want him?
Dissimilar but slightly similar situations. It's similar to the situation with Colin Kaepernick. Just shut your mouth. Like, if you wanted a football job, and by the way, at this point, the NFL has come out and said, we've moved on from Colin Kaepernick, and it was clear when you blackballed him 3 years ago that you had moved on from him. But I think Colin did have one last opportunity to troll them, which was kind of nice at his workout. He knew that, given the stipulations of the workout, that it wasn't going to be a fair shake.
No.
He trolled them one last time. Good for him. The NFL has now formally said that we're done with you, which they might as well have said 3 years ago when you blackballed them. But anyway, one of those things that the Eagles, if Brown could get his shit figured out, he'd be their number 1 receiver in short order, because they just don't have anybody for Wentz to throw to.
Nope.
And like you mentioned, the running game getting going for Dallas is huge for them because Dak Prescott cannot carry this franchise without a running game. They're going to pay him like he can, but in reality, Ezekiel Elliott is the cog that makes that offense go. Giving him a running game is really going to help them. I think they do end up winning this one on the road, and in turn, they still have to win. They have to win versus the Redskins the last week of the season to win the NFC East. But obviously, this one puts them in the driver's seat, and I think it eliminates the Eagles and obviously everybody else from the NFC East. Dallas gets a home playoff game, and again, that's still yet to be determined who it's going to be against. But they're going to be playing at a minimum an 11-win team at home, probably at 9-7, possibly at 8-8. So it's unfortunate that the NFL does it this way. It would be nice.
Get rid of the divisions. Across all
I'm
sports.
okay. You know what? I'm not upset about keeping divisions. I would just say that the better team gets the home game. I think that's the short term solution.
But if you do that, then you're basically making the division meaningless.
But you have to maintain the division.
No, I get it, but that's the point on the other side.
Yeah,
is
I
that
agree.
Dallas would get punished for winning their division, whereas Seattle or San Francisco would get rewarded for not winning their division.
Yeah.
That's the other side. That's why I said get rid of divisions all across sports. With football, the best 6 teams from each conference get in the playoffs. Just do it like you normally do. 1-2 get a bye. And the same thing.
Hasn't hockey gone to that? I believe hockey went to that.
They've gone to some weird. No. They still have divisions, but they've also gone to some weird 2 wild card system, and it's confusing.
Their playoffs got mixed up a little bit, and
it's confusing as hell.
The best team here in Cincinnati happens to be the Cincinnati Cyclones.
Right.
They play hockey, but Cincinnati is not exactly a hockey town.
No, it's minor league hockey. It's ECHL. If you ever come to Cincinnati, Tom Brady, go check out a Cyclones game.
It's a good time, and
it's entertaining.
And we actually, my family and I may be going next Friday. They have a 5-1-3 day on Friday, and my family typically goes the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Dollar beer night.
Typically
build the pyramids along the boards.
We go in the first couple rows. We build the pyramids along the boards.
There you go.
But yeah, it's a good time, and it's one thing that
very
Cincinnati is pretty good at,
and it's also a very affordable experience for a family to go to too.
It is. We get tickets for in the $15 range. Yeah. Again, the dollar beers much cheaper than going to a Bengals game certainly, and even a Reds game until about a month into the season when tickets get cut in half. It's a good time, especially if you enjoy hockey, and I do enjoy hockey.
Yep.
Growing up, about half my life in Michigan, Red Wings were a big deal when I was there winning Stanley Cups. So it's I enjoy watching hockey. So
now they're the worst team in the league.
I know, go figure. And they brought Stevie Y back to be the GM, and just can't seem to get it figured out up there in Detroit. But patience. He put the Tampa Bay Lightning as contenders.
That's on
patience.
That's on Ken Holland for giving massively terrible contracts for the last 10 years.
Yeah, they got to realign some stuff, and
thank God Ken Holland's gone to go ruin Edmonton.
Their minor league system isn't great right now.
No, it's bad.
It's going to be a few years, but again, if Stevie Y can take the Lightning to contenders, then give him some little patience with Stevie Y.
Keep the faith.
The captain knows what he's doing.
Yeah, Captain 19 knows what he's doing. All right, let's move on to the final game we're going to talk about here for this week in the NFL. Huge one on Monday night for playoff implications. Green Bay at Minnesota. These are the 2 teams left standing in the NFC North. If Green Bay wins, they win the division. One of the things to keep an eye on this game is it looks like Dalvin Cook is not going to play. He's got a bum shoulder.
And his coach came out publicly and said he thinks he can play through it, which I'm not a big fan of a coach making a decision on the player's injury. But we'll see. We'll see if he suits up in this one or not. Maybe it's one of those situations where they give him a pregame warm up and see how he feels. Obviously, I don't think he practices a single down this week. I think he just stays in the training room. But it is a big factor because Dalvin Cook is part of the reason of their success. They need a running back to kind of shoulder some of the load. Take some pressure off Kirk Cousins, who we know struggles in big games. Now he's playing really well this season. But he's in the past has struggled with winning successful football teams, and that's what the Packers are. And they're coming to the Dome to try and take them out.
Well, and
no longer the Dome, but they're coming to Minnesota to try. And
it's a dome. It's just not the old one. Yeah, Cook's backup, Madison, I believe it is, was also out last week due to an ankle injury. So, you've got your top two backs are not healthy. Not sure if the backup's going to play. Again, Schefter put out a report today saying they don't think he will play. Obviously, having the extra day until Monday, that can give you some time to hopefully clear that up. But I think for that reason, I like Green Bay here. As you said, Kirk Cousins turns into Kurt Cousins when it comes to playing in big games like this against winning teams. Cousins has been very, very good this season, and I think if it weren't for guys like Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson, you'd hear possibly some MVP talk from sent Cousins' way. But I think also the stigma of him from his reputation throughout his career that he can't win the big games.
Yeah,
I think, and especially without Cook here in this one, it's all on him if that's the case, and I don't see it being enough to get over the top of Aaron Rodgers when Green Bay has a chance here to lock up the division, and they're still fighting for a first-round bye because you have everybody else, New Orleans and Seattle and San Francisco.
They're all tied at 11 wins.
They're all jockeying for a first-round bye, so it's not like Green Bay has nothing to play for here. They can, like I said, they can sew up the division, and so I think Green Bay gets it done here on the road.
This was tough because it depends on which Green Bay team shows up, and in their three losses, the Green Bay team that shows up doesn't look very good. It's a tough one because it's on the road. Kirk Cousins surprisingly been more efficient than Aaron Rodgers this season. A lot of that hinges on Dalvin Cook and his injury and if he's healthy. But I like Minnesota at home. Something about Minnesota playing at home.
Well, they haven't lost yet at home. They're 6-0.
And they have more to play for because they have to get this game to have a shot at winning the division. They got to win this one. I like them playing at home, and for some reason I don't know what it is about Green Bay's allowing more yards than they're getting. They're almost allowing more points than they're scoring. Like their offense isn't quite as efficient. Minnesota averaging 5 more points per game than Green Bay is. And I know the talk is about Green Bay with a chance at getting the home bye, the first round bye, and the home playoff games, and really a chance to still win the NFC, have home throughout. I like Minnesota at home. I feel like Minnesota has more to play for, and both of these teams are going to be in the playoffs regardless. But I like Minnesota at home a little more than I like Green Bay on the road this week.
Let me ask you this: a comparison for this Green Bay team. As you said, they give up yards, they give up points. Do they remind what the Steelers record's 11-3? Does this remind you at all of the 2005 Cincinnati Bengals that you were a part of? And a defense that was predicated on creating turnovers and scoring some, but as the season wound down, teams were starting to pick them apart.
Yeah, it's just the offense's job to carry them. It's similar.
Obviously, not exactly the same, but I mean, you see where I'm going though.
Yeah. Green Bay's been good in good games. They've been good, and in their 3 losses, they've not been good, and. At some points in the season, Aaron Rodgers looks very pedestrian, and they found the way to win the games anyway. It'll be interesting because there's still a lot to play for in this division, and obviously with playoff seeding still up in the air with 3 teams at 11-3 or 4 teams at 11-3, and only 3 of them. Having the opportunity to get a home playoff game, this means a lot. And still with 2 games to play, Minnesota has an opportunity. Obviously, if they win the division, they get a home playoff game, but they have an opportunity to move up in the seedings and possibly get a bye. Like there's still 2 games left to play. Yep. There's still bye opportunities for Minnesota too.
And with this game being on Monday night, maybe we won't see Booger McFarland use his telestrator to draw genitalia like he did last week with the Saints and the Colts.
He's so bad.
Go look that up. Oh, by the way, speaking of that game, congratulations now to Drew Brees, who now has the all-time record for touchdown passes.
For the time being, I don't.
He passed Tom Brady in the game and Peyton Manning.
And by the way, why is your defense playing anything but pass? Anytime they're in scoring distance, why are they playing anything but pass? Because their offense is designed for him to break the record. They put all the hullabaloo going into the game.
Oh, and he threw one incompletion.
One incompletion. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's
Drew Brees is phenomenal,
he's
but
40
the pomp
or 41.
the pomp and circumstance surrounding it, because he's so close to Tom Brady, is a little confusing. They made much ado about it. And
this is going to be like McGuire and Sosa, like where they keep trading the record back.
Who
and
retires first, and it's whatever. Well, it'll be interesting to see, but they put a lot of extra sauce on it that they didn't need to, and Drew Brees didn't need the extra sauce. He's not the guy who needs it, but anyway, credit to him. Either way, credit to him for holding the record for the time being.
Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
Yeah, this one's short list.
We do have one. We do have one. I
wish it were better. It's not great, but 49ers Robbie Gould missed the extra point earlier in the game. For those of you who don't know, the Falcons ended up winning on the last play of regulation, save a kickoff. They ended up scoring. It was 22 to 17, up only 5. Robbie Gould's missed extra point would have had them up 6. They score with 2 seconds left. Julio Jones catches one, breaks the plane as he's getting tackled. The final score doesn't indicate that, because on the ensuing kickoff, the 49ers tried, banned on the field play and ended up throwing it back in the end zone, ended up recovering it for a touchdown. But you say, oh, well, they would have only been tied. Well, Robbie Gould missed his extra point, so they didn't even have the tie, forcing them to do the kickoff. As we know in the NFL, extra points are no longer automatic. On a grass field in San Francisco, not an automatic field goal for the Falcons. Or extra point for the Falcons, but they didn't even have to take it. They ended up taking D on their 2-point conversion, not giving 49ers an opportunity to block it and return it for 2 points of their own. Smart move by them, by the way.
Very smart move.
But because Robbie Gould missed his extra point, they weren't even forced to do theirs. So for that reason, Robbie Gould, you're this week's winner of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week. That's a lot of NFL talk, guys. Yeah. We like talking NFL, but we also like talking college football. It's time for some college football bowl games. As you mentioned, 10 bowl games this week.
That's right.
Leading off with Maction straight out the gate. We got 3 Maction games to start your bowl season.
Is your heart just beating with pride?
I love it. No, six MAC teams in bowl games this year. Every team from the state of Michigan is bowl eligible, even those turds from Kalamazoo. Every team in
say Ann Arbor.
No, well, the turds in Ann Arbor too, but who somehow inexplicably have the number 7 ranked recruiting class in the nation, probably where they begin next season in the rankings as well. They'll probably start the season ranked number 7.
They did not sign a single 5-star recruit, and yet they're that high.
Yeah, yet they're number 7. And again, for those of you who don't know, recruits are ranked after they commit, not before they commit. So once they commit to Big Ten schools, that 2-star kid just went to a 3-star kid because he committed to Michigan and not Central Michigan. But I digress. Anyway, starting it off, Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl. This one kicks off tomorrow, 2 o'clock in the Bahamas. By the way, best destination of all the bowl games, save the Hawaii Bowl. The Bahamas Bowl, definitely the best destination. Used to be the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl. Would have been way cooler to get free chicken strips than whatever the hell Makers Wanted makes, because I don't even know what they do. Buffalo versus Charlotte. Again, Maction to start it out. This is the 49ers' first bowl game ever. Buffalo's first time ever making back-to-back bowl games. Oh, by the way, neither of them have won a bowl game. Who you got?
I like Buffalo here. I have them winning by 2 touchdowns, as a matter of fact. Charlotte, as Adam said, first bowl game ever. Awesome. Good for you. Kids get a great experience going to the Bahamas.
Yeah,
your school gets a bunch
how
of money.
About the first bowl game ever? You get to go to the Bahamas. That doesn't
that's not
suck.
bad. Jarrett Patterson, Buffalo's running back, has been spectacular this year. 1,600 yards, 17 touchdowns. Charlotte gives up 33 points per game and almost 200 on the ground. Patterson's last game of the year against Bowling Green, who stinks every single year, pretty much.
My boy Scott Leffler's getting him back. He'll be all right.
Patterson went for 298 and 6 touchdowns against him.
Yeah, he doesn't suck.
No, he doesn't
Their
suck.
offensive line doesn't suck either. 3 guys named All-Mac in Buffalo.
Yeah.
They love running the ball. They're a 70-30 run-to-pass percentage
I think
team.
Patterson may go over 200 in this game.
4.6 yards per rush.
Yeah.
Their offensive line is pretty nasty. They run the ball. They ran all over my Chippewas, beat the Chippewas 43-20.
Yeah,
I got Buffalo in this one. Again, credit to Charlotte for being there. Big on them. First bowl game, getting to go to the Bahamas. Buffalo gets their first bowl win ever in the Bahamas Bowl over Charlotte.
Okay, so there you go. And we'll keep track of all these picks going forward and see how we do throughout. The Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. That's fun to say.
Oh, yeah.
Down in Frisco, Texas. Utah State, more action here.
More action.
Taking on the Golden Flashes.
Golden Flashes
of
coming
Kent
out of Kent State.
You're not taking Kent State in this game, are you?
No, I'm not. Utah State's Jordan Love declared before the game he's going into the draft.
Might be a first-round pick.
Might be a first-round draft pick. He is going to play in the game. He's an early entry guy. Also has a drug charge hanging over his head. He and the running back and one of the receivers have drug charges hanging over their head.
Cited for weed.
They don't have a court date till after the bowl game, so Utah State's going to allow them to play. Good on them. Again, weed is a different discussion, but they're going to let him go.
Yep.
Dustin Crum, Kent State's quarterback, leads the team in passing and rushing, also a dual threat himself. Both teams allowing more yards and points than they score in game. Kent State bottom 20 in defense yards per game, bottom 5 in rushing defense overall. I got Utah State in this one. He was surprised before he went on the air. Thinks I was going to go max and guaranteed. I like Utah State in this one. I like this is Jordan Love's last opportunity to prove what he's got for scouts in a real game. Now he's going to be playing in the Senior Bowl, but last opportunity in a real game here. He's going to have to answer some questions about the drug charges, obviously, going forward, so he needs to make a good impression on the field because his off-the-field issues are going to hang over his head a little bit. Yep. But I like Utah State in this one.
Yeah, Utah State I have as well. I think Jordan Love, in fact, does indeed ball out. Like you said, Kent State just stinks.
Their defense is not good.
Utah State's isn't much better, but when you have this situation, you have a talent like Jordan Love, who, as we said, may end up being a first-round draft pick because we always overvalue quarterbacks. Not saying he's not a bad quarterback, but he's probably more of a second-round guy. And but that being said, I like Utah State winning here. I have it 38-34. Should be a lot of points in this one. And but I like the Aggies to win and send Jordan Love on to the NFL. Now, let's get to the main event here.
The most important game of bowl season, by the way.
The only game that he really cares about here. The Chippewas making a fun flight down to Albuquerque to play in the New Mexico Bowl against San Diego State.
Yep, left yesterday, right after signing day. They sign all the recruits, hop on a plane, head to New Mexico. Central Michigan's budget doesn't allow for them to stay the whole week like a lot of bigger teams do. It's becoming more and more common. Buffalo just got to the Bahamas on Wednesday.
Well, they don't play this game's not till Saturday.
It's not till Saturday, so they're a little early. But it's become more and more common that bowl games teams aren't leaving until only about 2 days before. But San Diego State's got a really good defense, allowing 12 points per game, under 300 yards per game. They've only allowed over 400 yards one time this season. That was to a BYU team. However, BYU only scored 3 points in that game. San Diego State somehow won despite allowing 400 yards. You know what? They're giving up 400 yards more in this game because the Chippewas is going to big play their ass. It's going to be, Chippewas are going to get more big plays, which is one thing that San Diego State's defense doesn't like to allow. They're going to get them on their heels a little bit. They're going to end up winning this game. Now, I know I was watching some experts. A lot of experts are taking the under in this one. A lot of experts are actually taking the Chippewas to cover, getting 4 points. They're taking the Chippewas to cover, leaving it as a close game. San Diego State's offense is not explosive. I like the Chippewas' explosiveness on offense, to the opportunity to make big plays. Touchdown, Tommy Lazaro in the red zone, scoring on the zone read plays. I like Chippewas, and if there was ever a doubt, I'm always picking the Chippewas anyway, especially in this bowl game. Wouldn't be surprised if they don't end up winning, but I'm picking the Chippewas in this one.
They're not winning this game.
You're a butthead.
Remind
me when we get to the big blue game not to pick your boys.
I assumed you wouldn't anyway. The reason being is you go back and watch the MAC championship, and the play calling, Charlie Fry's play calling was absolutely horrendous.
Wasn't great. The
against,
fake punt inside
Miami.
Their own 20.
Well, and just the offense in general, and Miami was a team, ball control. They're going to take their time. They're going to limit the possessions, and San Diego State does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
As Adam said, they give up right around 12 points a game. They only average 19 a game. 19 points scored per game. So
yeah, still a 9-3 team. They've not scoring under 20 a game.
They have not given up more than 22 points in a game all season long.
Yeah.
Also, offensively, they've only turned it over 7 times.
Yeah.
That can win a lot of ball games. And also, too, San Diego State's cornerback, Luke Barku, 16 pass deflections and 8 picks.
Yeah, he's an opportunity to
He's going to play on Sundays.
He's going to play on Sundays. An opportunity to be a first couple round guy.
I like the Aztecs here. I think this is a low scoring game. I have them winning at 20-17, which would cover. But with the way San Diego State plays, the defense, ball control, you're going to be in a lot of close ball games. And so for that reason, I'm not surprised that people are saying the Chips will cover. But I like San Diego State here to win. I think their defense is just too good. And again, it just left with such a sour taste in my mouth watching Central Michigan's offense and its play calling against Miami in the MAC championship game.
Hurt my heart a little bit.
It doesn't leave room for a lot of encouragement. I would say going forward. And I know that bums you out, but
I got you. I again, expert. You're with the experts. Experts are right a lot of the time, but then again, experts also have the Chippewas finishing last this season. So, you got the under, but you got the Chippewas covering. So I'll take that where we're at. I'm down with it.
FBC Mortgage Cure Bowl in Orlando.
What is Mortgage Cure? Is it
FBC Mortgage and then Cure? Its proceeds go towards.
Oh, okay, good.
Cancer.
All right, I thought that was it.
Cure Bowl.
Well. Credit to them. Then I was confused. Credit to them.
You'll see the logo here in a second. Some of the funds for this game go towards breast cancer research.
That's awesome, then.
Liberty versus Georgia Southern Saturday afternoon down in Orlando. I'm sure weather will be just spectacular. I'm not a meteorologist, but Orlando in around Christmas time, there are worse places to be.
It will certainly be warmer than here, although we're gonna be 50 on Christmas Day here. So
yeah, I like Georgia Southern here. That triple option offense and some of the further numbers here. I know you're gonna have your pick here in a second. Liberty gives up nearly 200 yards per game, and let me give you some of the other numbers for Liberty as far as their defense goes. Also,
on the ground, by the way.
Also, 2 of Liberty's wins are against New Mexico State. And New Mexico State, I think I'm not even sure if they won a game this year.
I know they didn't win many.
Right. Okay, so some of the numbers. Liberty gave up 407 yards on the ground to the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana, 206 to Buffalo, 223 to New Mexico.
Well, we just mentioned Buffalo doesn't suck.
I know. 271 on the ground to Rutgers.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, 227 to Virginia, and also just for a fun fact, they gave up 572 yards of total offense to Maine. Now, they won the game, but you gave up 572 to the Black Bears. But the Chips
sounds like the Chippewas a couple of years ago.
The Chips only win last season, so for that reason, I know Liberty has a really high-powered offense, but this triple option for Georgia Southern, it's been a staple for years. Even back to the days when they ran roughshod through the FCS and won a bunch of national titles before they left, and North Dakota State's taken over. I like Georgia Southern here. Ball control, taking care of the clock, and I think the Eagles win this one.
Yeah, and you may be right. You got the triple option, under 75 yards per game passing. They got three runners right flirting with that 750 to 1,000 yards at Georgia Southern. I like Liberty's explosive offense in this one. I like their ability to get the big plays, averaging almost 450 yards per game. So excuse me. Georgia Southern's defense gives up a lot of yards through the air. They led by Hugh Freeze, first bowl game ever. Again, a lot of firsts in the bowl games this year, and also a lot of hosting your own bowl game. Especially early on here. Liberty's first bowl game ever, led by Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, who's in hiding at Liberty after he got caught cheating brazenly at Ole Miss.
Yeah, got caught. Now he's revived a Liberty team. First bowl game ever, led by Stephen Calbert. Almost 3,400 yards, 26 TDs, to 5 interceptions. I just like their ability to make big plays. And again, the triple option not built for coming from behind.
Nope.
I like Liberty to jump out in this one, especially with Georgia Southern giving a lot of yards through the air. Liberty build a touchdown or 2 touchdown lead. Georgia Southern's triple option, again, averaging under 75 yards per game passing, not built for coming from behind. So I like Liberty in this one.
Okay. Let's move on. Speaking of teams playing at home, Florida Atlantic, the no longer Fighting Lane Kiffins, they're hosting SMU in the Cherubini Boca Raton Bowl. You see, both Ab and I have SMU winning this one. For me, there's going to be a ton of points scored in this game because both these teams can put up points.
Both in the top 20 in the nation in points per game.
Neither team really interested in stopping on the other side.
Defense is overrated, right?
I think for all the scoring here, I look for SMU's running back Xavier Jones to have a big game. He has over 1,200 yards and 21 touchdowns, averaging 5.5 yards per carry.
Yeah, it doesn't suck.
Shane Bichelle, the quarterback, the former Texas player, now at SMU, he's thrown 33 touchdowns, 3,600 yards. Florida Atlantic's going to score, but I think also the loss of Lane Kiffin, the emotional and spiritual, everything for them.
There always seems to be a turnover and a little bit of a decline when you lose a head coach, particularly one who kind of brought them into relevancy.
10-win season.
That doesn't suck. And
Nope.
And by the way, it's FAU. All these people out there are like, well, FAU. No, it's FAU.
They like FAU.
Yeah, they like FAU. I got a couple buddies we played in the Hula Bowl with. Jared Allen and the fullback, and his name escapes me right now. He's the strength coach at Austin P. Let's go P.
Let's go P.
Anyway, I like SMU in this one. Again, a lot of points scored. The over-under set at 69.5. I think I'm taking the over at this one. Mm-hmm. The teams themselves average 80. So I think, again, bowl games, teams that don't specialize in defense aren't out there to play defense. They're going to be allowing points left and right.
It's a great point.
It is a home game for FAU, literally a home game. They're playing in their home stadium. They don't even have to leave campus. But I got SMU in this one again. Top 10 offense, seventh in the country in points per game, averaging almost 500 yards per game. Balanced attack. A 1,200 yard rusher, 3,600 yard passer. I like SMU in this one.
Yeah, you said the teams combined average over 80. I have SMU winning 48-40.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be a lot of
making
points.
the over without question.
Yeah, there you go. So it should be an exciting game if you like offense. That's a good one to watch. The Camellia Bowl up next this Saturday, late afternoon in Montgomery, Alabama. Florida International. It's the Fighting Butch Davises.
Yeah, there you go.
Taking on Arkansas State, the Red Wolves. Great nickname.
It is a great nickname.
The Red Wolves there. I like Arkansas State in this one. I know their defense is not very good at all.
Not very good is an understatement. Their defense sucks.
Couple of reasons why. Number one, I don't think Florida International has an answer for wide receiver Omar Bayless. Almost 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns this year. Third-team All-American.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he ain't bad. And one of the other reasons why, and I think this is more for sentimental reasons, Arkansas State's head coach Blake Anderson lost his wife Wendy over the summer to breast cancer. She'd been fighting it for 2 years and unfortunately succumbed to it.
Was it Georgia they played early in the season where their entire student section dressed up for him? That was awesome, by the way.
Wore pink.
Amazing
in her honor.
for him and
his
family.
And he just won like a national award for courage, for continuing on, and got his team to a bowl game here, 7-5 on the year. And for that reason, I like Arkansas State. The combination of the emotion trying to win this one for coach and the now departed Mrs. Anderson. I like Arkansas State here to win 37-27. I think Omar Bayless balls out.
The story's great. Their defense isn't. Their defense sucks. Their defense is the 4th worst defense in college football. I like FIU in this one just for the mere fact that their defense can't stop a soul. Again, giving up 480 yards per game, 260 through the air, 220 on the ground. Like, I know your job is to outscore everybody, and obviously with the offense they have with Omar Bayless and being one of the best receivers in college football. But, again, bowl games where offense is what bowl games tend to be predicated on, you're not working on your defense, and Arkansas State needs all the help they can working on their defense, obviously. I like Florida International in this one just because Arkansas didn't play defense before, and bowl games typically aren't when you learn how to play defense. So I like Florida International in this one.
Fair enough. There, wouldn't be surprised if there was a bunch of
Great
points scored in
story
that
though,
one.
by the way. Great story.
And it could also watch it. This one being one of those games that winds up like 17-13.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could be
happens.
one of those ones where they both just decide, you know what, we're just happy to be here. Montgomery, Alabama is a destination this time of year, so maybe they're just happy to be in Montgomery. The Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Bowl, number 19, 12-1, Mountain West champion Boise State on as the visiting team against Washington, 7-5 Washington Saturday. This is your evening game on ABC.
Yep.
Who you got?
I like Boise here. This is the Chris Peterson Bowl, of course. He's coached both teams. He is stepping down after this game to take some time off. I think a lot of people believe in a year or two he'll be back. He just needs to get. He said he just needs a break because he's been going at it for so long.
And he's been hammering it for a long time. Like, obviously, what he built at Boise State.
Oh, yeah.
That he was working his ass off.
You can understand why. I like Boise here for the simple fact that Washington has just been a Jekyll and Hyde team all year long.
Yeah.
A team that a lot of people thought could contend for the Pac-12 title.
Well, early in the season, we even talked about it, that they
Yeah.
were in contention, and they might be one of the teams that could put the Pac-12 into the college football playoff. Not so much.
Jacob Eason, the Georgia transfer, has been okay. Doesn't really have a lot of weapons around him. Again, it's just one of those things where you don't know what team's going to show up from week to week. Generally, you're going to play a game in the low to mid-20s every single week. I have Boise winning the game 28-24. Obviously, I understand there's a lot of emotion in this game. They're trying to send Chris Peterson off the right way. They've already named his defensive coordinator as the head coach going forward, so you do have that continuity there. But I think Boise wins this one and sends Chris Peterson off into a hiatus, and Boise finishes the year 13-1.
Yeah, initially I wanted to pick that, and I had to look at the game and look at a few other factors because on paper it looks easy. Like, Boise State's winning this game at 12-1, but not so fast, my friend. Washington, losers of 3 of their last 5, but I think the emotion of Chris Peterson's last game gets them amped up for this one. And then I looked at common opponent, and common opponent is really one of those telling things. The common opponents they share, Hawaii and BYU. Washington smacked both of them, and it wasn't even close. And by the way, one loss for Boise State is to BYU. So I like you mentioned, Jekyll and Hyde team. The Pac-12 was a meat grinder for Washington this year. 3-0 in their non-conference, meat grinder in the Pac-12 itself, but. I like the emotion of Chris Peterson's last game. I like the fact that the common opponents leans towards Washington. Now I know Boise State's got a high-powered offense, but I hate to do the small school big school thing because they're not that dissimilar. But Washington's going through the Pac-12 versus the Mountain West, I think bodes well for them. And again, the emotion of sending Chris Peterson off with a win in his last game before his hiatus, not before he retires, but before his hiatus.
Yeah, he's never said it's a retirement. He just needs
I think installing a current coach as the head coach tends to leave the door open for him to return in the same manner at which he left. But it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I like Washington this one. Again, the common opponents really bode well for Washington.
So there you go. Split on that one. Let's move on to the Arnell Carriers New Orleans Bowl Saturday night, 9:00. This is in the Superdome. In New Orleans. And
good day of football, starting off with the chips, and you get a bowl game that kicks off at 9 p.m. I mean, you can essentially go from 2 until midnight watching football on Saturday.
App State taking on UAB. You can see we both have App State winning this one, even though head coach Eli Drinkwitz left to go be the head coach of Missouri. I think this is Appalachian State all day long. I think this is a rout. I have App State winning 45-13. Their defense is very, very good. And their offense isn't too shabby either. I think this is Appalachian State in a rout.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, 12-1 doesn't suck.
No.
App State, 5 straight bowl games, won all 5 of them. This is UAB. Again, credit to UAB, and we talked about this on the show in the infancy of the show. UAB dismantled their football team. Since they've come back in 2017, they've had a winning season, bowl games every year, but they've yet to win any of them. App State wins their 6th bowl game in a row, going to the Superdome, beating UAB Saturday evening.
Let's move on to next Monday.
By the way, one of the best names out there, since everybody's got sponsors, I like the name on this one. The Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl, Raymond James Stadium, Tampa. What do you got?
We have UCF not playing for a national championship this time, taking on the Thundering Herd of Marshall. And similar to Appalachian State, I have UCF in an absolute rout here. Marshall has not played anybody to the talent level of UCF, I think, since week 4 when they lost to Cincinnati. I think UCF wins this all day long. Again, we'll see if they claim a national championship out of this.
Probably not this one. This one's not quite as the undefeated season. Not quite in play here.
But you're going to get a 10-win season out of this. Again, I think UCF puts a lot on the board. I have a final score here of 52-20. I think Marshall in this game just way overmatched for what UCF can bring offensively.
Yeah, I think just UCF's offense is way too explosive. 43 points per game, 535 yards per game, the fourth in the nation in yards per game, 6th in points per game. It's a virtual home game for them, obviously playing in Tampa. By the way, quick note: Marshall 12-2 all time in bowl games. They're 6-0 under their current head coach Doc Holliday, but this is the first loss for Doc Holliday in a bowl game. By the way, the last time UCF won a bowl game was their bowl win over Auburn, but I got them winning this one. I got them beating the Thundering Herd coming down to Tampa Bay, playing again the virtual home game for them in Tampa.
And there you go. So, and one final game here will be played on Christmas Eve at 8 o'clock. That's always fun. You're around the family, whatnot. You can have a little football on in the background. The Hawaii Bowl. Hawaii there.
Hawaii in their own bowl game, which we mentioned before.
That happens.
13 regular season games for Hawaii, just trying to get to that 6th win to guarantee themselves to play at home for a bowl game. But they got there this year. They 9-5. They played the Mountain West Championship, but 9-5 overall against BYU at 7-5. So yeah, we're looking at the records how they had 2 more games, despite only having 1 conference game. They did play 13 games this season.
13 regular season games. Hawaii, BYU. It's in the Law Stadium. No, because I think BYU wins this one, and for the simple reason that Hawaii has an issue with they're a little too generous with their opponents.
Yeah, they like to give the ball away.
Quarterback Cole McDonald has 14 picks on the year, so he's good for at least 1 a game, on average 1 a game. And Hawaii also gives up 426 yards per game. Yeah. Now BYU is a team similar for me to kind of like Washington. You kind of don't know what you're going to get from week to week. BYU they beat USC and then they get
the only loss for Boise State. BYU
they beat Boise, but then they get smashed by Washington. You know. But I think the turnovers here are going to come back to haunt Hawaii. BYU's made this trip over there before, so it's nothing new to them. And I like Brigham Young here to beat Hawaii.
Yeah, as you mentioned, coming off a sour loss, 400 yards against San Diego State, where they lost the game 13-3.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, a little sour taste in their mouth there. They do put up a lot of yards on offense. Balanced attack for them. The Hawaii Bowl not unique for them. Obviously. Probably a number of players on their team from Hawaii, given the Mormon situation.
Sure.
Typically, a lot of Islanders are Mormon, and BYU is one of the places that they do land if they don't end up staying in Hawaii when they come to mainland. BYU, a popular place for Islanders to play. Yeah, I like BYU in this one. We looked it up beforehand. Hawaii again, the 6 wins, getting them their own bowl game. They have played in the Hawaii Bowl 8 of the last 16 seasons, so it's not unique for them to stay at home. So it doesn't really add any element of competitiveness, because this is something that they do year in and year out, essentially, or every other season at minimum. And like you mentioned, the minus 14 turnover margin. Hawaii's going to give BYU extra opportunities, and BYU's going to be able to take advantage of those. So, yeah, I like Brigham Young in this one as well.
So there you go. There's the 10 bowl games that start from tomorrow and run through next Tuesday, Christmas Eve. And then everybody will take Christmas off. And then next Thursday, when we're back, a whole slate of games coming from that point on for the following week, which will include the college football playoffs semifinals next week. So we will get into that.
And next week gets a little crazy.
The rest of the bowl games again next week. Probably once next week arrives and we see what plays out. Next week probably will be more college football heavy because we do want to devote a special time to the semifinal games. But there you go. There's the 10 bowl games coming up between now and our next broadcast next Thursday. If you want to get involved with our bowl pick'em, you can just email us, fumblegatepodcast@gmail.com. You can just email us the picks for these 10 games right now and email us week to week. If you want to give us your picks for all of them in advance, that's great. We'll take that and we'll note those down. And if you wind up beating us, we'll get some kind of prize to you.
Well, you'll probably wind up beating me, but if you end up beating Jason,
well, this is New Year.
Well, this is your new opportunity. Now we match on most of these next 10, but
we didn't differ on some.
We'll start to mix them up a little bit. I'll probably pick Big Blue for him since he'll probably pick against his boys, but
not a chance.
It's always fun. And again, I'll have to bug my boy Steve because he usually gets in on it with us. But just have some fun. And if you want to do some pick 'em against us, by all means, join in. It's a lot of fun, and we'll go from there.
We disagreed on 4 of the 10.
Oh, there you go.
So there's a chance for
and
one of
we'll
us
probably go 2-2 in those games, and we'll start the week off tied.
Yeah,
it's fun that way.
We'll be tied exactly. So we'll keep tabs of that as we go on week to week. As we said, next week the college football playoffs will be covered. And when we come back to you the day after Christmas, everybody out there have a very safe and very happy holiday season. And safe travels. Enjoy your family time. It's worth it. Catch a little football over the weekend. And remember, you can always catch us here on Fumblegate. Watch the replay of this broadcast at your leisure at any time. If you want to catch up on these games.
Share it with your friends.
If you want to catch up on these games as they're coming along during the next few days, get yourself a little bit of a preview of each game, what to look for in those games. Here you go. And as Adam said, share it with your friends. Pass the word around. We certainly appreciate that support as well. But that's going to wrap it up for this week. For Adam Kieft, I'm Jason Grefer. We thank you so much for joining us here on Fumblegate, and we'll be back 1 week from today, the day after Christmas, and we'll find out if Santa was good to both of us, or if we each got lumps of coal in our stockings.
Yeah, I'm just hoping for some beer.
We'll find that out, and did Adam get some beer in his stocking? We'll find that out next week as well. We'll see you next week here on Fumblegate.